So, if you have a smartphone, it's important to know that the average consumer replaces their smartphone every 3 years. So what happens with those smartphones? Where do they end up? And do consumers know where to take them when they're at their end of life? That is what we aim to do with Tech Trash. I'm Matthew Yankelov.
I'm Samuel Chips.
And this is Tech Trash. So, first of all, the formal term for Tech Trash is electronic waste, or e-waste. So, electronic waste consists of electronics that were at their end of life or have reached their obsolescence, meaning that the software is no longer supported by the manufacturer. The devices could be just broken beyond repair, like the iPad on the screen right there, or they could just be thrown away or recycled, even if they're perfectly functional. So that takes us to laws. So, according to a 2019 study by Resources, Conservation, and Recycling, the e-waste laws vary from state to state because there are no federal laws. Some states have laws that require take-back programs, meaning that people take back the smartphones to a facility often created by their manufacturer. Some states will require recycling centers where the electronics are broken down by material. And some states will ban incineration and landfilling. And when states don't ban the incineration and landfilling, incineration can cause, according to a 2021 study by United Nations University, incineration of electronic waste could cause air pollution. Lead can leak into could be released into the air from smokestacks. And when the electronics are landfilled, hazardous materials such as mercury from CRTs or old TVs with the tubes, they can be released into the soil. And e-waste has not improved. The levels have drastically increased within the last 5 years. So why did we do this project? I worked at a company called Macmedics in Severna Park, and there they fix Apple computers, Macs, and they also offered an e-waste recycling program. I helped to manage that e-waste recycling program by sorting through the electronics on which one will be recycled and which ones will be refurbished. And over time, electronics just accumulated, and it got so bad that we didn't know what to do with all of them. And piles of laptops like the ones in that picture ended up being seen all over the repairs room. So that led me to think, do people know about the multiple recycling locations within that area? And led me to some questions. So here's our research question.
So our big overall research question for this project is, what are consumers doing with their e-waste, right? If e-waste levels are rising, is that because people don't know how to get things to recycling centers, people don't know what to do with their electronics, right? What practices are consumers implementing, and where are issues, where are areas where we can improve? Now, initially we did actually start out looking at businesses in Maryland, because businesses generate a lot of e-waste, right? We spoke with an industry expert, Vernon Becker from the Blue Museum, and he told us that a company that he's worked with oftentimes would go, they handle IT services for different businesses, so they would go into businesses, they would replace desktops, monitors, keyboards, all sorts of projectors, all sorts of things. And what companies would do is companies don't want the hassle of having to recycle those electronics, so they'll just opt to throw them away instead, or push them on to whoever's collecting them to take care of them themselves, which can be a lot for small organizations. However, we had trouble reaching out to different businesses and getting their own practices for them, so we pivoted to consumers. Consumers also generate a lot of e-waste. Think how many appliances you go through, how many phones, how many laptops. We developed a 10-question questionnaire and then analyzed it against a previous study to see if the Maryland population differed significantly from states with and without e-waste laws. That previous study was done by the Electronics Recycling Coordination Clearinghouse in 2015, and it looked at a whole variety of states across the US to see which ones had e-waste laws, which ones didn't, and how those different levels of regulation affected what consumers did with their electronics. We then compared that using a chi-squared test to the survey that we conducted to produce data. We gathered over 120 responses in our initial survey, so let me walk you through some results. We asked Marylanders,
Do they know where to take?
yeah, we asked Marylanders, do you know if it's legal to place your electronics in the trash or not? 72.4% of Marylanders said they do not know whether it's legal or not. It is legal. 62.9% of Marylanders said they were either unsure of where to take electronics that needed recycling, or they didn't feel that there were recycling options available to them nearby. But only 31.6% of Marylanders said they would be willing to travel more than 10 miles to get to a recycling center. Now, this survey did suffer from insufficient sampling. We were only able to get 120 responses, which is lower than we would have liked. And we found no significant difference between our Maryland population and the populations of states with and without e-waste laws. However, Maryland did correlate more closely to states without e-waste laws, which makes sense because we don't have that. So ultimately, we concluded that Marylanders are very aware of the problem. Nearly 75% of Marylanders said this issue was very important to them, but they're not aware of local laws because another 75% said they don't know what to do with they don't know if it's legal to throw away their electronics or not. Ultimately, some of the big factors that contributed to this problem were that locations were hard to reach and there was nowhere to go to find information about what to do with their electronics.
So, in the future, other researchers can find methods to increase public awareness of policy, and perhaps some things that I thought of would be how do people, like if you put "don't throw batteries," like a sign that says "don't throw batteries" into a trash can, how would people respond to that? Would they just keep throwing their batteries? And also, people could research the impacts of modular electronics, which are electronics that have components that can, like the screen, can be just unscrewed with a screwdriver and easily replaced. To see how people would respond to that. Would they fix their electronics, and would they, how would recycling centers, repair centers, how would repair centers adjust their prices from more abundant parts? And also, how can we improve and even create e-waste policy in Maryland? Because Maryland doesn't have policy. People are allowed to throw away their electronics with no fines and no punishment. They can just throw them in the trash. So how can, would people follow those laws created by Maryland?
How do we bring e-waste down? How do we save our environment? Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Any questions?
I have one question for you. Have either of you changed your behavior, or have either of you have like, oh, well, we researched this, now I know this, I'm not sure what it is.
Well, I personally have never thrown away electronics. Yeah.
Yes, we know.
My bedroom is a mess. I repair all of the electronics I have that break.
Well, you'll grow up to be an adult with a plastic bag with all the cables you've ever.
Yeah, I already have that. Now it's a massive box under my bed. Yeah. And also, I want to add a shout out to my grandma, who's here on her 80th birthday.
Have you been able to implement any recycling programs for electronics at your school?
No, we haven't done that.
Not within the time frame of this project, but that would be a good option for future research.
We have looked, the school has like a Chromebook recycling project that they do over the summer, and students can help out with that. I don't know all the details about where the computers in the school end up.
Very good.
Okay, well, thank you.